Hey friends, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Sidebar Media Podcast. Our guest is the velvety voiced beam of radio sunshine, Suzanne Lynn. Suzanne is currently hosting an evening show on WGTS 91.9 in Washington, D.C. She's using her gifts to speak kindness and hope to callers and listeners. Suzanne's stories are layered with advice and life lessons on how to be honest with yourself, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and growing no matter your age and experience. Suzanne's radio career started with a boyfriend in radio and a DJ who missed a shift, and has taken her around the country working in various markets and formats, and also off mic, working behind the scenes in marketing and sales. Thanks for taking the time to hear a little bit of Suzanne's story and her mission in her work. This is the Sidebar Media Podcast with your hosts, Robbie and Nicole Harper, where we tell the stories of those who tell the stories.
Welcome back to the Sidebar Media Podcast, and today we're diving into the world of radio, and we've got a friend of ours, Suzanne Lynn, who we've known for from her days here in Florida. She's up in Washington, D.C. now, but Suzanne is a longtime veteran of the radio world and has done several different jobs and shows and time slots and all of those things. And we just want to welcome Suzanne to the show.
Suzanne, who is also now my best friend because she said something really nice about me when she first saw me.
I said you look very young.
Pertaining to my age. And so we're best friends now.
Oh, wow. All right. I love it.
I told her I was going to make her a best friend bracelet and mail it in. So I got to start in on that.
Yeah, welcome, Suzanne. So now you were here in Florida. Now you're up in Washington, D.C. What is life like up in our nation's capital?
Well, it's amazing. I mean, when I accepted the position, I knew I was going to love the show. I do evenings at WGTS 91.9, which is a Christian format. And so like at K-Love or Z88.3 in Orlando or whatever. So I knew I was going to love the show, especially the evening hours, because that's when people are most vulnerable and they're hurting. And it's kind of a Christian Delilah that you can just do a heart connect. And I just love that. I wouldn't change these hours for anything. And I knew I loved the people that I work with, but I didn't realize I was going to fall in love with the area so fast. Absolutely love the area, the culture, the diversity of people, the kindness of these people.
Wait a minute. People in DC are kind? We don't ever hear that.
I'm telling you, that is the biggest response that I get is what? I am not kidding. Not just people who work in the stores. Now, granted, I'm not in the Beltway. I'm in, Maryland and dealing with Virginia people and stuff like that. But even my little bit of interactions with in the Beltway type of people have been super kind, really really nice, not just people who are working in the stores, but people who are standing in line. They just strike up a conversation. They make eye contact with you when you're walking in the store. I know, I was just really surprised. And I think just God has placed me in this wonderful place. And I feel like the 30 something years I've been doing radio, this is what it's all been gearing up for.
Wow.
That's a big thing to have finally felt that way. That's great.
It's a great perspective. Have you run into anyone famous?
Evander Holyfield.
Wow.
Yeah, it was at an event after it was the week of the president's prayer breakfast.
Okay.
And there was an event that you had to have an invitation to and everything, and people were like, Evander Holyfield's over there. I'm like, oh, I guess it's that big guy over there, right? And
the giant man in the corner with the weird ear.
Yeah, shaking his hand, it was like shaking the hand of somebody who had a glove on. It was just such a big hand, and firm. And he was just really kind. And I had a captive audience, of course. All guys. I sneaked over kind of as the only female, poked up in the middle. I'm like, what you think about being on my radio show, Mr. Holyfield? And he said, yes, but I wait for the phone to ring.
Oh.
So, but all you do is ask, right?
Evander, we know you're listening to this. Call.
Right.
Yes.
Call Suzanne.
That would be awesome. I mean, world championship boxer, one of the greatest. That would be really cool.
Well, here's my philosophy on getting people on is at least let me get a no. Let me get a I don't know. It may be a yes. Maybe it's a maybe. I just want to know that I've been invited to the party, and whether I'm going to get attention when I'm there, whether they're going to come on, that's their decision. But I think in media, you have to be bold and step out and just go, yeah, I'm going to contact Howard Stern, see if he'll, I've gotten several no's from him in my previous life in secular radio. But you just have to ask. And I think you have to be a tiger.
Yeah, I agree. I think even in what we do asking people to be on this podcast and also in doing PR work, reaching out to journalists, aiming high, you don't get an interview into Forbes if you don't ask. So There's nothing wrong with asking. That's for sure. So why
not me, right? Why not me? Why not you, Robbie?
That's right.
It's got to be somebody.
It does. It does. You might as well swing for the fence.
That brings in sync songs. It's going to be me into my head. So now I'm singing that for the rest of the interview. Have fun with that.
You are young. If you were my age, you would have been talking about Chicago. But you talked about.
I like Chicago. Okay. I like Chicago.
My first thought was NSYNC. I mean,
yeah, we're born in the '80s, grew up '80s,
in the
'90s, so that's where that's where we are. So, Suzanne, you are working night shift at a radio station in Washington D.C. area. What has been your path to get into radio? What did that look like? How did you know this was what I wanted to do?
For my 8th birthday, I knew so much I wanted to be a radio announcer that I got a plastic radio, plastic 45 record player. It had a board that came with it. You could write commercials on there, and it came with headphones and everything. So my parents knew when I was 8 that I'd been talking about it so much that they gave me a DJ record player. Then I think one of the most profound things that happened in my life came from a teacher. So in 5th grade, I was on. You weren't expecting me to go back to my 3rd birthday, were you, Rob?
No, I'm all about this because in my previous life, I was a teacher. So I'm like, give it up for teachers.
Yes, that's it. In 5th grade, they had a morning announcement team. And I was part of the team that rotated doing morning announcements for the whole elementary school. The first day of 6th grade, the teacher came up and put his arm around me. And he said, Suzanne, you did such a good job last year. We don't want to have a morning announcement team. We want you to be the morning announcer. And I'm telling you, from the bottom of my heart, that was probably the biggest thing that initiated me to go forward to be a radio announcer.
Wow. What was it about being 8 years old? What did you hear that made you want to get into this?
I think, I was the baby of the family, so probably the attention. If you were to ask my sisters, that's what they would say. But I've always loved music. I'd much rather listen to music during the day than have a TV on or honestly even read. And I'm trying to fight that a little bit. I'm trying to add more reading in. So I can't do 2 things at one time, like read and listen to music. Something's got to give.
Our teenager can do that. He can study and listen to music and he makes good grades. And I'm like, my brain doesn't do that.
That's a wonderful thing. But no, I would say, and then I started dating a radio announcer who eventually became my husband. But we spent a lot of time, a lot of our dates were at the radio station. Instead of going out to spend money, he could make $20 an air shift, Saturday night. And sometimes he'd have to leave to go get the pizza because I wasn't old enough to drive. So then he'd say, okay, when this record's done, push this button and I'll be back before I have to talk. Like, it's not glamorous, but that's my true story. And then one night the DJ was too drunk to come in and the PD, the program director, said, is there anybody there? And he said, Suzanne's here. And he said, put her on. That's
wow.
I wish we could say that, I went to school but that's more the story of people my age who are in radio than the more modern broadcasters, because now you are kind of expected to get a degree and,
right.
Inside to know the art and the science of radio. I'm not crazy about the science of radio. I like the art of it, but that means I'm not well balanced. And so younger people today have it much harder to get into radio because there is so much automation. You can't just have somebody that's drunk and then you get to fill in for them because it's voice tracked. It's pre-recorded. There's not nearly the opportunity to spontaneously have, a chance to slip in. So
right place, right time.
Yeah.
Some experience from being around it and drunk DJ. That's my story. The formula.
The beginning and the end of my book.
See, kids,
That's crazy.
don't go to work drunk. It's not going to work out for you. People will take your job.
It's exactly the moral of the story.
Well, I mean, that's such a great, it's a little bit of a common theme, maybe in media, but not maybe in the world too. You wait to get your break. I mean, it's a drunk DJ that didn't show up to work, and you're ready and you're prepared and you get into the game, and then all of a sudden doors start opening and things going from there. And that's the way it works.
We need somebody for Sunday morning, Beatles and Company. She can do that. It just reminds me, I know that when my husband was coaching our kids, he would say, he would put the kids in who were standing next to him. Stand by the coach. Be ready to go in. Don't make them look around and try to find you on the bench somewhere or playing in the sand or behind the dugout. You're going to lose. You're going to lose that opportunity to the kid who is standing there, anxious and excited about getting in the game.
That's a great line. Stand by the coach, man. That could go, okay, we could go spiritual with that. We can just go practical with that. That kind of goes everywhere. What a great thing to live by.
Absolutely. After you got the call to get into the game there, and where did it go from there, Suzanne? What was your path in a nutshell to get to where you are today?
Well, I started in secular music, meaning not Christian. And I was for many years, kind of a top 40, then a light AC, kind of like Celine Dion and Billy Joel. Then I went to hard news, and then I went to hard rock.
Okay, hard rock I would not have pegged you for. Beatles, Celine Dion, Elton John. I'm here for all of that.
Yes. Well, this is part of my testimony.
I love this.
So I'm on a hard rock station where we're raising our kids, and they're probably, I don't know, 12, 14, maybe 10, 12, something like that. And we were, it was a morning show. And so I kind of justified it to say I'm a Christian at home and this is my job at work, and God gets that because he gave me this job. So he, I had it just completely justified that I can do this blue humor and do what a rock chick is supposed to do. Even hearing from my kids that some of their friends weren't allowed to listen to their mom on the radio, that hurt. And then what's even worse is there were times where I'd have to call my husband and say, make sure the kids don't listen today, because I knew what content we were going to be doing. And I was ashamed. I didn't want them to hear those little ears to hear what their mom was going to be doing. Again, it was just a job until it wasn't. And about a year and a half into the rock stuff, God started putting just a pit in my stomach when I would leave the show. I just started feeling really, it was like the Holy Spirit was just moving in me and feeling bad. So I saw something coming. And then shortly after that, a young girl called the radio station and requested Highway to Hell from AC/DC for her boyfriend that had committed suicide the week before. And I walked away from the show that day and came home, and I said, God is telling me to quit. He's telling me to quit and to trust him. And my husband's response was, okay, we'll put your resume together and see what. I said, no, you don't understand. He's saying now. And he goes, well, did God tell you how we're going to pay the bills on one salary? I'm like, no, he hasn't gotten to that. But what's really strong is he's saying, trust him. He goes, well, if that's what God's saying, then you need to do that. Well, 3 weeks later, the same radio group called me back in sales. And I made 3 times what I was making on the air. And learning promotions and learning about community and learning about the other side of radio, the marketing side. So I did that for 6 years.
Which was another tool in your pocket that you're using.
Huge.
Used and are using still.
And God called me over to Christian radio, and part of my job was promotions for that.
Well, that's a switch.
So, yeah. So
hard rock to Christian radio.
See, I needed that 6 years to break the community away from knowing me as the rock chick who was doing this blue humor. God used that bridge to soften my heart, to grow me closer to him, to reset my faith and reprioritize. And he didn't open the Christian door until he felt like I was ready, and it's just been Christian radio since then. And my heart's just overflowing with gratefulness.
That's a completely different atmosphere, completely different callers, completely different, well, obviously playlist, but.
Yeah.
And one thing, doing the sales, having that time doing sales in Christian radio, a lot of times that it's listener supported. And so you being a personality, there's share-a-thons, there's things where you guys are on the air trying to raise support for the station. And so that that was one of those things that was in your toolbox that you could have used.
You became so in tune, and the DNA of the community became such an important part. It was now not, by being in promotions, not about being on the air and talking at people. It was now sitting down and having heart-to-heart conversations and really feeling what their struggles are and what they're doing. And it was a huge game changer.
And really seeing what's happening in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. He gives you what you need at the time. You don't realize it. Like, I enjoyed sales, but wow, this isn't what I really kind of signed up for. Relax. I got it. Suzanne, chill. There's a much bigger plan. You're on the road. You're in progress.
Listen, if I had $1 for every time God said, Nicole, chill, I would have a lot of money, because I still don't do it like I should.
Oh, it's easy to get controlling and to just sit back and go, all right, I surrender. Just your will.
That's a huge leap of faith to be able to do something like that.
It is. What challenges, I mean, you mentioned a little bit in there. I think part of it is working somewhere where it got to a point where it wasn't a good fit for you any longer. But what other challenges have you faced in radio that maybe a lot of people don't realize because they're not in that world, or maybe it translates into our other jobs and the things that everybody else does? What are some of those hills?
Yeah, radio personalities only go on the radio, they play music, they have fun, and they leave. So surely there's no things that any radio personalities would come against. I assume, the typical, it's just a party all the time.
Yeah, they kind of ask, what do you do between the songs? I think they think that we're just dancing, or I'm not sure, and then what do you do? Do you just go in for 5 hours? And no. So professionally speaking, the challenges have been understanding who your audience is for each different format, because obviously the rock format is way different than the CCM, the Christian contemporary music format that I'm on right now. So understanding your target is, the woman that's between 35 and 54. And, you keep having birthdays, even though the target doesn't change. So as you grow and your kids are getting older and your stories that you're relating to these people, you might start aging out a little bit of what they're watching on TV, what they're consuming, what their interests are, what they're dealing with. And so you have to stay relevant and understand that it's not your life that you're projecting. You're trying to bring them in. You're opening your arms to them and saying everyone is welcome. No one is excluded. Whether you're divorced, a different color, different religion. I mean, you would be surprised at how many people don't go to church and are not evangelical that listen to CCM. And so it's just we let the music speak about Christ. And while we do, it's not our job to save them. God is going to do it in His way. But to understand that there's just a wide, vast array of people who are listening. There are men, there are teenage boys, so you never want to leave anybody out. So the challenge is finding relevant content that can reach someone's heart and not make them feel excluded, but very loved and important. Mm-hmm. So that professionally, I would say that's one of the bigger challenges. Personally, I mean, I guess everybody kind of thinks life is perfect. And, I imagine as we're sitting next to people in church, and smiling and shaking hands Sunday morning, that how are you? Fine, nice and good. Thanks. How are you? Fine, nice and good. And that's just not reality. We're hit with deaths, and, lost my dad 3 weeks ago, my sister, who was my best friend, 6 or 7 years ago. Some major challenges in my marriage that came up as a big surprise that you just deal with. And I think that those scars and those battles make you better on the air because they humble you and they make you more vulnerable and more transparent. Mm-hmm. So when you're going on the air, it's like, have you had a bad day? Did you feel like a complete failure today? Did you have a meltdown at the grocery store by any chance today? Oh no, that was me. That's right. And then a couple people came over and just being real and going, you need help? I need help more, you know? And I think by our nature, we don't do that. I think God uses these hard times for good, for his message, and to be messengers.
And knowing that your story, however you're choosing to share it or through the music that's playing, is hopefully reaching someone's heart. And maybe you're the
Absolutely.
bright spot in someone's day, or they're the bright
Absolutely.
spot in yours.
Yeah.
On the flip
Yeah.
side.
Oh, for sure. For sure. The calls that come in and just the relationships. I love the fact that Jesus sees us as one soul at a time, you know? So even though we're behind a microphone talking to lots of people, those phone calls, those personal visits when you're at sticker stops or when you're in a concert and somebody comes over and just gives you a hug, it's like, that's how Jesus sees us, just one at a time. You know?
So you are dancing in between songs, is what I'm hearing you say.
There are times.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I have my hands raised and just, you know, glorifying God. And then there are other times I'm texting going, I'm sorry you broke up with your girlfriend. You know, I mean, life is happening between songs, but for the most part, it's forward momentum. And there's a lot of planning that happens with each show. While we want to make it sound like we're just winging it and it's just casual, we've put hours into that week content, or, you know, a lot of time into the day.
So
You
it
know, really
takes a lot of practice to make something look casual.
It does, absolutely. And what we're constantly trying to think is, where is the listener right now? So the morning show is doing content and speaking to her, the target audience, when she's, you know, in the car, she's trying to get the kids ready, she's packing lunches. And you're stopping to think about where your listener is first. My audience is completely different. So I go on at 7 o'clock at night. They've probably just gotten home. They may be cleaning up dishes or even preparing because it's a little bit later. But with traffic, people get home a little bit later. I do the tuck-in time at between 8 and 8:30 at night. I'll say goodnight to kids on the air. If they text in, I'll tuck them in bed and give them a little kiss on the forehead and wish them a good night. And then we start moving from the family time into the more parent time of, okay, let's connect. What's going on today? How are you? How can I pray for you? What did you experience today that was great? Or how can we turn this negative thing that happened in the news to go, you know, God is in this. He's not surprised by this stuff. Here's how you and I holding hands can move forward and deal with this. And so it's constantly just thinking about, where's your listener? What are they going through? You know, 11 o'clock at night, you can't just assume, well, I hope you have a great night. No, there's a mom up nursing. There's people getting ready to, you know, there's truckers that are rolling through town. There's people getting ready to go to the overnight grave shift.
There's someone sitting in the hospital next to their kid that's sick or spouse.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of life that happens in those dark hours.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be on at that time. I just dim the lights. I put the air conditioner on real cold, and I'm just snuggled in with my coffee and just, God, your show.
Do you have a lot of opportunity to take in calls? I mean, it's not a call-in show, but do you have people on the air? Are you interacting with people a lot via text and email?
So I'm only 6 weeks into the show, and we are currently looking for a producer. I think we're narrowing it down. Eventually, it is going to turn into a heavy call show. I'm just not that talented to be able to do content, think about the technical side of running the board, and take the calls all at the same time. So something's got to give. And at this point, I'm hopefully getting one call on an hour. But the direction of the show, hopefully in 6 months, is going to be very different than what it looks like now. I'm still just getting my feet under me. But there are a lot of elements. There's a lot going on at one time. You know?
So what does a day look like? Your show starts at 7 p.m., correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So do you show up at 7 or are you showing up at 5 or whatever time? What's it look like?
Oddly, it really depends on the day. We have 4 out of 5 days we have meetings, and I'm either virtually involved in that or actually going in. You know, especially this new part of starting the show, my mind is going faster than my ability to be able to do it. So, I'll sit down with my program director and say, okay, and then the music beds, I want to move into this direction. And then I have an interview. I have 3 overarching ideas, and then what to do in DC. I want to have these, and then I want to have authors on. So I've got all these grand ideas, but they each take so much time to flesh out. And I guess that would be flesh out. We probably want to edit that. We don't want to flush it out.
Sometimes you do have to flush them out. Listen, some of them are not great.
But
You have to just flush them.
That is really a good point. There are things you really do have to say no sometimes for what's the best content for the show. Everybody approaches you about what's most important to them. And again, it's not even what's most important to me. So it's not even that I don't care about it. It's what my audience is going to care about. That's why when I have authors on, one of the biggest mistakes, in my opinion, and I'm moving into another question you didn't even ask, but I'm just passionate about this.
Bring them on.
I've been doing this for so long that authors will send you a book and they want to sell books. They want to get an interview, and they're looking at it in the wrong way. So I encourage authors to say, what is it that you're offering to the decision maker's audience, whether it's the personality or the producer? Why would they care about having you on? Work backwards. Not, I have a book and I want to be on your show. It's, hey, this is National Grief Awareness Month. I lost someone, There's a lot of people in your audience who are struggling with grief, who can't get past that second stage. When you have me on your show, I'm going to share with you how to get unstuck from stage 2 and get onto 3, 4, and 5. Show them the value, but also make a tie-in. It can't just be a bowling ball that just drops out of the air. Why? Why? What is it? A news? Is it something that people are talking about? What is it that would make you interesting? And then what is that conversation that the audience is going to care about?
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice.
Otherwise, the books end up on the conference table in December, and then an email goes out and goes, hey, come get the books you want. Otherwise, they're going to Goodwill. It's just, if you look at it backwards and go, your audience is struggling with this, and that's why you need me to be on the show.
And again, that's knowing your audience,
right? Which
seems to be an art you are perfecting.
It does.
I think constantly every announcer is till the day we die,
Well, I mean, I think that's something that part of our podcast is to peel back the curtain a little bit and show what it is that people don't know. And I never really thought about knowing your audience. I mean, you've done morning shows, I'm sure. I know you've done midday shows and evening, and you're absolutely right. There's different needs, and because of what people are just doing during that time of day. I mean, demographics for sure, but just the time of day, at night, the kids are in bed and it's quiet, and that's when your brain starts to go.
Yes. For better or worse, you could be feeling a lot of extra pain. When you're physically sick, you feel worse at night. I've done drive times, mornings and afternoons. It's very polished. It's a lot of plates spinning at one time. It's weather and traffic, and then your content and dinner table talk, and constantly just pushing this information out because it's such a busy, fast time. Middays and evenings are more similar in the way that it's a little bit of a slower.
You're able to sit with your thoughts in the evening.
Let's just connect. It's okay. Yeah. Let's slow our minds down a little bit. Share with me what happened today. What was the best part of your day? You can't do that on drive time because I got to know about news and traffic and weather.
Well, I'm already feeling better about it. I was starting to go into a zone when you just said that. I was like, well, Suzanne, let me just tell you.
Yeah.
You're hoping for your show to kind of become a Christian Frasier minus. Do you remember the show Frasier when he was the Colin? I mean, kind of that kind of vibe without the psychologist degree behind it.
Right. Yeah, because I have a travel agency certificate, so that I am definitely not qualified to do any psychology. Just heart connect stuff. And again, I can't stress how much the music is the message. We are just the encouragement between songs. We're just that positive, friend, doing life together with you, and just saying, you're not alone. We get you.
Can you think of a story, Suzanne, that you've connected with a listener and they've said, I heard this certain song, or you said something that really affected me or changed my life. Or, I mean, I know in Christian radio and faith-based radio, that happens more often, maybe not, I don't know, but in a different way than in secular radio. But
Sure.
can you think of a story to where that's changed someone, where you're just here as this messenger, this guide, just doing what you're supposed to do, and it helps someone?
So many stories. I mean, and it's God. It's not, I mean, he's just prompting us with what to say at the right time, because you can't possibly know who's listening and who needs to hear what song at what time. But there was a time on a Christian station in Florida that I was doing middays, and there was a really bad car accident. I mean, there's a lot of really bad car accidents in Florida all the time, Central Florida, I-4 and everything. But I was especially moved to ask for prayer specifically on the air. And again, it's something you can't ask for prayer all the time because people get desensitized to it. But I really believe that the Holy Spirit, moved that moment to bring the community together to pray for the people. I had no idea how many people were hurt, who they were. Anyway, the man was seriously injured. I mean, barely escaped death. Contacted us months later and said that he'd been listening to the station at the time of his accident, and he was told afterward that whoever was on the radio had asked for prayer for him, and he's certain that it was the prayers of everyone that came together. And he came into the radio station and did a testimonial and everything. It's just, another time Angela said, she was a young girl that had a couple pregnancies outside of marriage and was really lost, real bad spot with her mom, and she went into the garage and turned on the radio, and it was the radio station in South Dakota that was a Christian station I was working at the time. I wasn't on the air, but she said it's having that come on, she's just decided to stop and wait and listen. But then she did reach out to me, and we went to have coffee. So it's sometimes about the relationships that you can continue once you hear their stories. You can't always have coffee or get a testimonial from people, but so many times the stories go deeper than what they'll even call in and let you know. So yeah, it's just, and I can't imagine being an artist, a Toby Mac, how many thousands of people are like, your song changed my life. I mean, it's so God. It's just so God, the way he does stuff like that.
Yeah.
Again, it's being that right place at the right time with the right song and the right heart behind it.
For sure.
Yeah. And I think that's something to take away, that you don't have to be on the radio, or you don't have to be doing something amazing. I think it's just being perceptive about what you're doing and what you're saying, and making sure that things are lining up, that you just never know what you're going to say, good or bad, can affect somebody.
Robbie, that's such a good point. When you think about it, every one of us has a microphone with our mouth. Are we going to tear people down? Or are we going to build them up? One of the things I'm trying to work through and do a break on tonight is the revivals that are going on. You know what? If you've got a family, you can have a revival. It doesn't have to be these big mass, thousands of people. Your influence might just be your immediate family, and that's what your microphone is speaking to.
Yeah, you can make a difference right where you are.
Absolutely.
And that's a great point.
I just need you to know I'm writing down snippets of things you're saying. Like, I am remembering these things.
Well, it is recorded, so
that's okay. I'm going to edit and listen to it 100 times. I'm still writing it down.
The other thing that comes to mind is how important I've learned in the last year emotional intelligence is. And that's what I'm really striving for. I've given up on my IQ, but man, I'm not giving up on my EQ. I can grow emotionally and decide. I don't have to say everything that I think. I can lift people up. I can't outthink you, technology or, Einstein or whatever, but I can change the way that I choose to react to something that's happened, because we're all hurting. That's for sure something that we have in common. We are all hurting, and a lot of childhood hurts, a lot of church hurts, relationships. Sometimes people are in physical pain, and you as a responder to what they're doing to you, that's in your hands. That's what you choose to give back, and how you continue that conversation or relationship. So that's what I'm striving for right now, and I'm really
When
working
we
hard.
learn to walk with people, alongside of people, instead of getting caught up in whatever the issue is, when we learn to walk beside people, I think that's when that empathy thing develops. I don't necessarily have to agree with you, but I can still see you as a person
Absolutely.
and say, you're a human that God created and God loved just as much as me. And
Well, you touched on a big word, empathy. We're missing. Something has happened to society, I believe. We're missing empathy, and we've become very judgmental. And
well,
until
if you don't believe like me, you're clearly wrong,
right,
is where we've become.
And we haven't walked in their shoes.
No, everybody has a story that paints exactly where they are in that exact spot. Even if it's an issue that we very much disagree with, there's something that got them to that point. No one wakes up one day and just decides on a certain thing. We all have things that have crafted our lives.
They've gone from A to B to C, and then they've gotten down the road and looked back, and they've gotten very far. Somebody, it was my boss, recently had a really great example about decisions that we make, and it's a little bit like driving. You make per minute when you're driving hundreds of little adjustments. They're not big, but if you don't make those teeny little fractional changes, you're not ending up where your destination is. You're going somewhere else. So we have to constantly make these little adjustments and be aware. So that what is our North Star? Is that bringing people to Christ? Well, we have to keep making adjustments in the way that we love them, the way we present ourselves to them, the way we respond, the way we have empathy for them.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. One thing in our lives, in between our first and second child, Nicole and I, we had some infertility issues, and that was just awful. I mean, but
sure,
it's very easy to become bitter and just let those emotions really take over. But one thing that it did do was it made us more aware of people in pain and struggling with things. Maybe it was infertility, maybe it's something else. And
it makes you very aware to never ask anybody like, oh, are you having a baby? Or are you having another one? Or, you learn to keep your mouth shut because you don't know what people's, listen, I haven't learned to keep my mouth shut about a whole lot, but that one, that one I got.
Yeah.
We get those lessons. They're sometimes painful, but when we have to really get them. And
it's true.
Agreed.
Well, you've had a seasoned career in radio and done various jobs and time slots and cities and voiceover. Yeah, that's another thing that you've done that I've actually worked with you in the past on, and a few of our fellow friends and acquaintances know you for doing voiceover work. Is that something you still do?
I do. I love it. It's so fun. I've done 5 audiobooks, and that's the end of my career for audiobooks. There's so much work. There's so much work for little return, to be honest with you. So the things that I really enjoy, I seem to get hired a lot for IVRs. So I think it stands for interactive voice recordings. So, you call the doctor's office. Hi, you reached Dr. Johnson to speak to a nurse. Press 1 to, so I get a lot of those.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you right there because I have an issue with some of those things because there's one for a doctor's office in our area and they say the name of our town wrong and it makes me boil. So angry because we live in DeLand and they'll say, thank you for calling DeLand. And I'm like, I'm going to come up there and fight somebody.
That's very important. And to be honest with you, there are times I've called 7-Elevens in the city that I'm doing the phone for and say, hey, can you just tell me, how do you say the city that you're in? Just randomly, I just Google the name of a business in that city and just ask them. It's those little
because there's a lot of names, at least around here in Florida. And I know farther, up the East Coast, there's a lot of like indigenous people names and just cultural things that we would never
it makes you sound disconnected. Yeah.
Yes. And then you're completely discounted. Like people who pronounce Kissimmee.
Right.
I'm not listening to you if you call it that.
Right. You're not from here. You're not one of me. Yeah. Yep. So, but one of the other things that I really enjoy with voiceover are called e-learners. So a lot of schools, especially in the past, have been switching over, going online. So a lot of their content had to move from textbooks to digital where you're seeing video online. And that's really fun because you learn the most random things. So like, I go to bed at night. Hey, sweetheart, do you know how to move a paralyzed person from one bed to another? I do, like, will I ever need it? No, but these e-learners are really cool, how to properly lock up documents in a police department, how, that they become classified and restricted and just the most random things,
I love random facts.
Yeah.
I would adore that so much. You'd be great at trivia night.
Yeah. The chance of them, hey, who knows how to move a paralyzed person from one bed to the other? I've
So
never
the next time I get that question, I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
I wish Suzanne was here.
So yeah, voiceover is a lot of fun. It's changed so much that there's really kind of a divide between the old voiceover people and the new voiceover people. New being from like 2010 on, and then the old, because they used to fly the professionals into Hollywood or to New York, and that's where the great equipment was all set up. And you were a big star. You were a voiceover star who did trailers and car commercials, and then Kevin set up a studio in his mom's basement, started getting on Fiverr. That ain't so glamorous, but it's a gig society. So as life changes, we don't all go to the same expensive hair salons. Sometimes we hit up great clips. It's having the options. I think competition is good.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes us all good because the cream will rise to the top.
I had a friend who was looking for some voiceover work, and I connected him with you, and they had a video that he works for like a health care type company, and they had a video, and you did the voiceover work for it, and they were so happy, and it was just, it just fit. It was the right tone. It was right everything, and so. It takes a special, not everybody can do that. I mean, voiceover work.
Is this your voiceover voice? I need to hear your voiceover voice.
Oh, this is basically, that's kind of the beauty is you are who you are. But my first program director, 30 years ago taught me to bring my voice down to that rich, deeper area where, when my kids were little, I yelled, kids, clean up the, Atari. It's not an Atari, Mom's gotta get that up, So my default is still going back to that high, over emotional, but I don't know, you just find this deep, richer place, and it just, I don't know. It's where you land. Yeah.
I have a couple questions to wrap up with. What is one thing you would like to tell someone that may be looking to get into radio? Maybe they're that little kid that got a microphone and...
Well, now they're making YouTube videos.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's a competition to that, I guess. But I mean, I guess there's still something about live radio. And what would you say to somebody that is looking to go that route?
I would definitely, if they're a teenager and they're seriously considering, am I going to go to broadcasting school or do something else? I would definitely ask for a couple days to be able to go in and shadow and look at the different. You just don't normally wear one hat. The smaller the station, the smaller the market is, the more hats you're going to wear. The larger you're able to just kind of focus on that one specialty for what you are and what you do. But definitely go in and shadow. And the second thing is I would ask about an internship so that you can really see the inner workings. No place is perfect, and there's constant growing. Even in, I think some of the biggest challenges I've seen have been in ministry. It's not a bubble that's not protected. I believe that Satan sometimes comes after them specifically because they're making a difference and they cause turmoil and hurt. So they're not out of the loop of pain and discouragement and everything. So ministry is a great place to be, but it certainly holds its challenges. So yeah, I would start with going in and shadowing and then asking about an internship. But I am so happy that this is the direction that I went, but it's not for everyone, specifically being on the air. Maybe promotions is the area where you're maybe fundraising, maybe sales or director or program directing. These are all very different talents still under the roof of radio.
That's good. What is something that you would tell the Suzanne that the Suzanne now would say something to the Suzanne that started way back in the day? If you could,
with the drunk DJ.
This is, the drunk DJ. What, with that in mind, it's sort of, I know there's a song about that, and I can't remember who sang it.
It's Dear Younger Me for Mercy Me.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
I said DJ. That's a question we need to get into. DJ versus radio personality. Hold that thought, though.
Like airline stewardess or flight attendant, right?
Yeah. So what would you say to yourself back then?
I think a couple things. It's not always going to be a man's world, and be patient. Wait through that. Have boundaries, and don't compromise. But it's not always going to stay a man's world with that frame of mind. And the second thing is just God's got a plan. Just keep growing and learning. Be humble, find mentors, keep showing up, doing your best, and just wait for God's gift to reveal what it is. And I've always been a very slow starter. It doesn't matter what I do. I start slow. And then even in my last interview, 3 months ago, I'm like, look, I'm just going to be honest with you. I start slow. I'm going to not meet expectations right off the bat, technology wise, what you're hoping to build a show. Then I meet expectations, then I exceed. So be patient with yourself, and now be honest and upfront about it. This is a weakness of mine. I need to feel secure and get my legs under me, and then I'll start to shine. But please understand that I'm not going to come out of the gate, superstar and having all the answers. So I've almost kind of embraced it. Okay, I'm Suzanne, the slow starter. That's okay.
Sounds like a lot of grace you have to give yourself within that.
It's true, though. It really is true. And that's okay.
So going back to what I was yelling at, like DJ radio personality.
Right. I don't think that it really matters. I mean, I hear some people say radio personality, and I don't know, just kind of, that seems a little bit like a higher, I'm just on the air. I'm the evening show host. DJ, sure. I would say DJ, it could be more of like a wedding DJ, which I've done, so DJ to me is a little bit more of the mobile, fun party type of stuff. Radio personality is probably more like an Imus or a Howard Stern, just an evening show host. So I don't think anybody really gets offended by. I think more, voiceover. Am I a voiceover artist? No, I just do voiceover work, so yeah, you can get stuck on titles like, no, I'm good. Whatever you say, whatever you want to call me,
As long as the check cashes, you can call me.
Yeah, it's got to be clear. Yep, you can call me whatever you want. Check's got to be clear. Right.
And I already hear an entire additional podcast you talking about it's not always going to be a man's world. And I have a feeling there are a lot of stories tucked in your memory banks about starting out and being in a male dominated career path. So that feels like a part 2 coming, just that alone.
That might be a part 2.
Yeah. One specific story that was a big moment, big hurtful moment of reality. But it changed and it moved on, and it's good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're willing to share it one day, that sounds like a part 2. That sounds great, because there's, we still have some glass ceilings, and we still have a lot of men dominated careers out there, and the PR world is a lot of women dominated,
right? Which
Robbie has known, since he got into this. The PR world is typically your communications departments and schools and whatnot are all very female loaded.
Sure.
But it goes the other way for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Suzanne, for speaking with us, being so candid. We really appreciate it. How can someone find you, tune into your show at night, how can someone do that?
Sure. Well, you can reach me. The radio station is WGTS 91.9. You can stream that. You can download the app, and you can reach me at Suzanne, SUZANNE, at WGTS919.com. And I'm on LinkedIn.
And I'm sure most radio stations now, you can ask your smart speaker to play it, and a lot of times we play music while we're cleaning the kitchen or doing the things.
Listen, my favorite station to listen to is 40s Junction.
Oh, and Sirius XM, yeah.
I love the 40s. It's my background music.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, you just ask her and say that. I won't say it because I have two of them here.
Mm-hmm.
Mine will do it too.
Yep. Got one right over my shoulder. Well, thanks again, Suzanne. We really appreciate it, and we hope to have you back again sometime.
Thank you so much, Suzanne.
Nicole, Robbie, thank you. It was really a joy. Thank you for what you're doing. I love you both.
Thank you, best friend.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Sidebar Media Podcast, brought to you by Blue Bridge PR. If you would, please like and subscribe and check out some more information about today's guest. We'll see you next time.